speaker today, Michelle Uyghur. Michelle is with the Venture Creative Collective. She's dedicated to her craft and has built a rapidly growing website development and process automation company. And today she's going to give us the skinny on what AI can do for those of us in the accounting and finance realm. And Michelle, like I said, I do have one kind of general question that's been emailed in. I'll ask that before too long, but I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and get ready to go here.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to have so many people who have come today. I will ask if you could pin me, one of the hosts, so that I'm really big on the screen. Otherwise, when I share my screen, it's going to be very tiny for everyone. One of you could do that. So I own Venture Creative Collective. You're probably realizing I am on the young side. Yes, I am. I am 32. I have ran this business for 11 years, however. I always say that I've never had a 9-to-5, and it's true. And the reason for that is because I have narcolepsy. So it's a sleep-wake disorder. My brain gets confused when it's time to be awake and when it's time to be asleep. And why that matters for all of you is because that's why I had to get so good at automation, development, and AI from the beginning. Because if I could only work, let's say, 6 hours in a row, when normal people could do 8 hours, and really ambitious people were doing 12 hours, I didn't stand a chance if I didn't find tools and methods to be able to get ahead without spending more energy, because I didn't have that, and I never will. So what I'm going to show you today is ChatGPT, how you can use it in the financial industry. And what I ask from all of you is please be very collaborative for this. I don't want this to be the Michelle Talks into the abyss for a 60 minutes show. I want to know what you think and what you want to know. So when I ask for volunteers, when I ask for ideas, put something in the chat, put up your hand. Bill will be monitoring that for me since I'll be sharing my screen. I won't be able to see. So he'll be interjecting with your questions and the things that I'm asking for volunteers. Do we all agree? Does that sound fair? Yes, thumbs up, smiles. Awesome. Okay, let me share my screen and we can get started.
Hey, Michelle, I think this might be a good time to tee up the question I've received via email, because Perfect. It probably speaks for many of us in the call already. Mm-hmm. I'm a tech-savvy accounting professional, but I know nothing about AI and potential accounting financial reporting application. What can AI do in the day-to-day? How can a financial reporting manager use AI to create efficiency in reporting departments? Any discussion that can give me a familiarity generally would be appreciated. And this is coming from a person who is particularly interested in SEC reporting, which is stuff like 10Ks, 10Qs, S1s, proxies, all the usual public company financial reporting, and incorporating both sophisticated text, including accounting and legal concepts while doing that reporting. That's a mouthful, but if you follow all of that, I can paste it in the chat if that helps. But that's kind of the general lead into what he's looking for.
Perfect. So I can absolutely answer that, and I will. First, I want to show some general how this thing even works, because I suspect there's at least someone, if not a lot of someone's on this call, that haven't even opened this thing before. Am I right about that? Yeah, I see the nodding. Okay, so I'm going to show you how it works in general first, and I'm going to show you how it does not work, and then we can get into some specific applications that are useful. Does that sound good? Sweet. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Please, if it is not very big on your screens immediately, please someone unmute and flag that so that the host can fix that. So it should be taking up your whole screen pretty much now. Good to go? Okay, so this is ChatGPT. This is the magic. So when you first sign up for it, you will go up here, you'll go to chat.openai.com. You will get links afterwards, after we're done, So don't worry, you don't have to write them down now. Now just focus on watching and learning, and you'll create an account. And there's two versions. One is free and one is paid. The paid one has a more powerful aspect, which is what I'm going to be using today, simply because it's faster. So it types faster and it's always available. The free version sometimes locks you out. So when you come in and you have the paid version, it's only $20 a month. You'll see two options up here. So the everyday model, that's what the free users also get. It's great for day-to-day things. Then this one that we're going to use, GPT-4, it's for things that require more creativity and advanced reasoning. So when it comes to financials, advanced reasoning is very important. So we're going to use that. We click on it. So this is just like a chat box when you're talking to someone on Messenger, or you're even texting someone. So I'm going to start with something very simple. I'm going to ask it this question. What is the distance from the Earth to the moon? We hit enter, and it's going to start thinking. And there's our answers. So it's saying, for those of you who it's a bit small for, the average distance from the Earth to the moon is about 238,000 miles, or 384,000 kilometers. And then it goes on to say the distance varies based on an elliptical orbit, what the furthest it's ever and the closest it's ever. Okay, so that's interesting info, but there's a website that already does this kind of thing, right? This one right here. Has anyone been on this before? Google? So we can ask it the same question, right? Oh, look, there it is, just as fast. So why bother with ChatGPT when we already have Google? Well, although you can use ChatGPT for things like this, just to get quick info, that's not what it's best for. That's what Google's best for. What ChatGPT is very good for is adding creativity or advanced reasoning, strategy, and insight into data. So let's ask it a follow-up question. When you write in the same thread down here, and there's already info up here, ChatGPT will remember what you talked about up here and consider that when giving the answer. So I'm going to ask it to tell me, what is the distance from the Earth to the moon in the voice of, let's do Donald Duck, the famous cartoon duck. He has a very distinct voice, right? Let's see what it says. Now, I'm not a voice impersonator. If I was, you would get a really funny answer right now, but the text says the average distance from the Earth to the moon, oh boy, it's about 238,000 miles, or 384,000 kilometers. Sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes it's a little bit more, because the moon likes to move around in elliptical orbit. Quack, quack. Pretty good, right? If we asked Google to do that, it's impossible. We're going to get the same answer, right? But hey, let's do it anyways, right? Let's just see. Nothing. Whatever happened to Donald Duck, Donald Duck's best moments? That's no good. So this is the type of thing that instantly I find makes ChatGPT approachable, interesting, and cool. Because if it can do the voice of Donald Duck, what other voices can it do? Well, the answer is anybody who has enough information out there about them that their tone, their style of writing, their sentence length, the words they use, their patterns, it can write like any of them. That might mean that for some of you who have a lot of content, decades of content out there, ChatGPT might even be able to write like you, if you ask it to. Or someone you admire and that you try to write like. And what that does is it saves time. And that is the first and major benefit of this software. I hope at the end of this, every time you're thinking of a new project you need to start working on, or a new task that's more than a 5 or 10 minute thing, I want you to think, could this be faster? And most times, when you need to do something that involves any sort of creativity, writing, idea generation, that's typically the largest mental load part of a project. And yet it's not actually the part where your unique, valuable expertise is the most vital. That comes in the finishing touches, right? Where you really add your expertise to it. And as financial leaders, you probably have people who are working for you or doing work to send to you that's taking care of a lot of the little mundane things at the bottom anyways. You're adding the final touches. So I'll show you what I mean by this. I'm going to make a new chat because our next example isn't going to be about a duck or the moon. Instead, we are going to ask it to write a cover letter, because when you're applying for jobs, it's an important part of it, right? So write a cover letter for a financial controller position. We're going to start by just asking it that. That was fast, wasn't it? Oh. It gave us the structure that we should have at the top. It started with an intro. It had a section about a previous role. Gave similar types of softwares, degrees, things like that you might have. And then it talked about the company itself and a nice closing. It's a great generic cover letter. But generic doesn't typically help you stand out, does it? So there's two things you can do at this point. The first thing is you can take this, you can press this button up here, and it will copy what you have here. And you can paste it into Microsoft Word or whatever tool you like, and you can edit it to be just like you want it. Or we can take it a step further in here. Let's say you're applying for this position at it's a startup and it's known for its fun atmosphere. So we're going to ask it to rewrite this for a position for the same position at a fast-paced, fun startup. Now we're going to ask it for tone. Make sure the tone is fun and witty, but still professional. Because that's important, right? We don't need any sort of jokes that aren't professional in here. And let's see if it'll do that. And for the sake of all of us, I'm also going to ask it to write it shorter so we can all read it in real time. But in real life, you wouldn't need to do that. Okay, here it goes. So we've now changed from dear to hey, and changed from name to first name. So instantly the tone has changed. It now, instead of being a very typical type of writing, it now says, thrilled to spot the financial controller position at blank. 10 years of crunching numbers, reducing budgets, and playing detective with financial anomalies has got me excited to switch gears and join a fast-paced, innovative team like yours. At my previous gig, and then it lists out the things that it did, but it's a lot more fun and witty like it was asked to be. I turned the financials from a spaghetti mess into a well-oiled machine, proving that even finances can be made fun and efficient. Imagine that, right? And you can do this with any type of language. right? When you're applying for a company, you should be doing some sort of research. So you should know what type of tone and language would be the most appealing for them because it would match them. And let me tell you, from all the hiring I've done, it's the messages like this that stand out in the sea of the same boring stuff. When I'm not, oh, go ahead, Bill.
So it really, a lot of the output really depends on what you're typing in as the prompt, as the input. The more specific you are in prompting it to tell it what you're looking for, the happier you're going to end up with the result. Is that correct?
That's exactly. So the real art with this, and why I don't believe it's going to take jobs from most people, because being an excellent prompt writer is the skill. And it happens to be the same skill you need for instructing any entry-level team member. Someone who is eager, is going to try very hard every time, and they will follow your instructions very closely. But if you give vague instructions, or if you give language that's not necessarily obvious to them, then the output, although eager, will not necessarily be great. And that's why when I was rewriting the question here, I was saying rewrite this for a position at a fast-paced, fun startup. And I caught myself and I changed it to the same position, because a position could have created an output that wasn't for a controller, which is what I wanted this to be for. So that's a perfect example of where watching your prompts and making sure they're accurate, detailed, and clear, just like you would for a new intern who's starting, is vital.
Hey, Michelle.
Yeah.
Can you, would it allow you to feed it somehow something that you've previously written, and then to tell it, I'd like you to write this letter in this same style?
Yeah, it does. So let's do it. We're going to do it using job. I'm just going to grab this one. I know this is not necessarily they're not necessarily going to be what we want for us industry, but you would grab an actual piece of text. So I'm going to use an actual job description, or even, yeah, we need something that already exists. Let's use the job description. So you would do the same thing with something you've already written. So if you had a cover letter, you could paste it in. So you would say, following the format of this cover letter that I have previously written, provided below.
Not just the format, but the style, the tone.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to write every one of those details, right? So following the format, keep the same tone and the same historic position and skill set information. Because if we don't say things like this, it might get creative, because it might know, like it did here, right? We didn't tell it any of these details of what we did in previous jobs. It made it up based on what would be commonly said. So if we're going to feed it something, we want to make sure that we're telling it same tone, same format, same skill set information, or factual information, vital information, so that it doesn't change those things.
And to do it using the diction patterns of Donald Duck.
All right, let's do it. It's gonna be funny. Okay, and then we're going to grab this one that we wrote before. So I press the copy button and we're going to paste it in. There it is. So it says, following the format of this cover letter that I have previously written, provided below after the instructions, keep the same tone and the same historic position and skill set information. but write it for a CFO position. Use the dictation patterns of how Donald Duck speaks. Because as far as I know, Donald Duck doesn't write. So I had to go with speaks. And then I pasted it in.
Hey, Michelle,
Yes.
you could also paste in with that, also copy a job description that you are targeting and put that in there too, so that it incorporate that data for a more customized cover letter, right?
You sure could. That's exactly. Yeah. And that's why I had the other one open. But I will always go, if someone wants to go on a adventure with me, like we're having here, I'm down to go with on the spot examples. So here we are. Our Donald Duck CFO is, it's got the same tone, right? 10 years of juggling numbers, trimming budget, and playing Sherlock Holmes with finance. I'm raring to flap my wings and migrate over to an upbeat, inventive roost like yours. Totally silly, totally ridiculous, but it shows the power of this thing.
Good.
And why this shows the power is I don't think anyone in the history of the world has ever created this exact thing before. A Donald Duck themed, witty, fun, fast-paced startup cover letter for a CFO job. Because why would they? We just created it from nothing. Pretty cool. And it's a good place, I think, to segue into the ethics of it, right? You hear me saying we created it. We did. Well, we did, because ChatGPT couldn't have created this if we hadn't given it the prompts to do so. It doesn't create its own little things on the side while we're sleeping at night. It doesn't do anything on its own. It requires the humans to direct and migrate and push the content through with the caveats that are necessary. And if this was copied from somewhere else that already exists, well, it isn't. This one's too ridiculous. So we know it's not, right? But here's one that I always like to do as an example. So let's see. Why are Great Danes, I have a Great Dane, the best family pet? It's going to say lots of lovely things about Great Danes. But what we're going to do is we're going to take some sections of this and put them into Google and see if they exist already. It's such a big concern with AI is content being stolen from people who've already created it or not, right? So let's take this line right here. Despite their large size, Great Danes are known for their gentle, affectionate, and loving nature. They're often called gentle giants for this reason. We're going to take this, just this first line. I'm going to make it really easy. That's a pretty boring sentence. There's nothing special about that. There's nothing creative. It's all factual. It's things I've heard lots of times before about Great Danes. So we're going to open Google. And you may or may not know this trick already, but if you put something in quotation marks and search Google, it will only show you results that have all of the same words.
Right.
So for this one, it's showing us something similar because there are no results found for that sentence the way we pasted it. None. Nada. Let's do another one. All right, this one might pop. Great Danes are intelligent dogs that usually respond well to training. That is a very simple sentence. Surely it's existed before. No results found. So if sentences as simple and generic and truthful about Great Danes as those two have never existed before on Google, that shows why copyright and ownership, yes, if you're going to copy someone's whole book from somewhere, that's wrong, right? But I've now shown you how you can copy single sentences and see if they've existed before. You can also take these copy these and put them right into plagiarism detectors if you're ever worried. But I have given this, I don't even know, over 20 times I've done this now on presentations, and 0 sentences have ever popped as having existed before. So you are creating something brand new when you're doing this, which means it's yours. Now let's
Hey,
do,
Michelle,
yeah.
I know that I've heard that ChatGPT is not necessarily acting with the internet in, being updated in real time, that it might be as of the end of 2022 or something like that. What's the current status of that, and how close are we to getting real-time interaction?
This is a very great question. So when you're using the regular versions I've been showing you, there is no real-time interaction. There was a browse with Bing feature that was around for about 2 months, and it was recently taken down because people didn't like, there was some copyright claims on that because it was showing you real-time results, and those were lifted from other places. They cited them, but it got taken down. So that is an important thing to think about for anything you're using this for, but particularly important for things like finances and trends. So if you're asking it to give you ideas, innovative ideas of new financial trends that I can bring up at a board meeting and look really smart, and they're all going to be from 2 years ago, that's not a good look, right? So I like to use this for things where you can ask it to find trends or patterns based on things you're inputting, rather than asking it for real-time information. The good news is it will always tell you when you're asking for something that it doesn't have access to. So I will do, when was the latest earthquake in San Diego? The basic, easy question, right? There it is. It's going to tell you it can't do it. So I really appreciate this because it takes a lot of that guesswork out, that in the instances where you're asking it to do something where real-time data or recent data is important and it can't give that to you, it's going to tell you. Now, what you can do, and this is only with the paid version, is under the plugins, you can get ones, and Link Reader is one of them, right? So you can get it to read any links that exist. So let's do this one. I asked it to read this link and tell me what skills are needed for the job. And then I paste it in. Now you can see it's using Link Reader. So anytime it's doing something outside, you'll see a green box like that. Oh, and it works. Too bad. This is a new change. So it's clearly Indeed has blocked it. So now we would have to paste it in instead to be able to do it, which is fine. Copy paste. Just like that. But more sites are going to start doing this. They're going to start protecting their data, which is why it says they can't do it. But there we are. Look how easy it was to get what we wanted anyways, right? Now, something you can do when looking for a job is you can paste in a bunch of different jobs, and then you can ask it to create a table, for example. So create a table of the skills needed with the proficiency and any other notes. I'm going to fix the spelling because it'll bug me otherwise, but if you spelt it wrong, it will still work because ChatGPT is trained to understand what humans mean, including that. There it is. So where doing something like a table would be really useful if you're searching for a job in the financial field is you could ask it to rank the positions that you're looking at based on how good of a fit they are to you compared to the financial incentives, how much they pay you, and to create then an ordered table based on which ones you should apply to first. Where do you spend your time? Where is it the most valuable? So that intersection of most likely to get the job with how much they're going to pay you. And you could ask it to do things like that because it can extrapolate on data. And that's where the logical part of this comes in. And then you as the human, you just do a double check because sometimes it makes things up. This is a very important thing to know. It's never intentional. You'll see people saying, oh, ChatGPT lied. It's not a person, it can't lie, right? It's like that entry-level employee. They tried so hard, but they just didn't understand something and an error was made. They're not trying to lie to you. They just made a mistake. So you change the instructions a bit and you'll get something better. But you always want to make sure to actually read the outputs before you send it anywhere. Do not press this copy button and paste it into an email and write it off as your own without looking it over. No different than you would with that human employee, right? Right. Who has an example or an idea? It doesn't matter if you know if it can be done or not. We can talk it through together. But if something, either a problem that you're having or something that's taking up a lot of time, and we can see how ChatGPT could help.
How technical is its understanding of things? So for instance, could you feed into it last quarter's financial statements from some company and ask it to really broadly just analyze those? Or would you need to be more specific? And could you ask it some specific questions about, you know, I'd like to know what you think the change in their current ratio says about the business?
Yeah, you can. And if you, sometimes the initial answers aren't necessarily as deep as what you might want, or they're a bit too generic. Sometimes they're amazing, but sometimes the initial ones aren't great. You can then give it feedback. So you can say, actually, I'll show you where I did it right here, Great Dane for narcolepsy, because I have narcolepsy and I have a service dog, and one of my friends is getting one as well. And so she wanted ideas of things that a service dog could do for narcolepsy. And I only knew for my own point of view. So this is a real one that I did yesterday. And the first set of answers, I said, those are so good, more please. And that showed it that I liked the type of thing it was giving me and I wanted more. And every single one of them that it gave was more. And then, so I did that 3 separate times total, I think. Yeah, right there. These 2. These are great. More ideas, please. If I didn't like what it was saying, if I didn't like the pattern, then I would tell it, these are too shallow. Give me deeper insights. Or these are great initial thoughts, but I need something more thoughtful. Again, we're thinking of it, I'm going to keep saying it, think of it like that entry-level human, right? You've got to give some sort of feedback, because if you just say, try again, it will, but try again because you hated it all, or try again because you just need a little more, you need a little less, like give that info, take that time to write, these are so good, give me more if you like it. Yeah. And one thing I will recommend is, because this is data, and data is the most valuable resource in the whole world, more than gold or diamonds or anything. That's why the biggest and most valuable companies in the world are all data companies. Make sure if you're inputting anything that isn't public already, that you remove any like identifying information. So instead of saying, oh, Facebook, then you say a California-based tech startup that is now massive, and it will still get the point, right? You just want to make sure that you're not feeding in information that you wouldn't want to be accessible by ChatGPT for other uses. They say they're not going to do that. but I'm not personally willing to be taking the risk on that. So, what other questions do we have or ideas?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is ChatGPT, can we attach some of the Excel file? Because most of our financial statements is done by the Excel file. So I
Yeah.
want to post it this Excel file and then let the ChatGPT understanding and analyzing it. Is it possible?
Yes. So there's two ways. One, you can paste anything in, right? So if you copy the fields and paste it, it will be able to do that. But the other way is within the paid version, you have these plugins here. And if you click on it, you can add more plugins. You just have to scroll down. So you don't see it at first. It's down here in the plugin store. So I have one set up for making an Excel sheet, but there's all kinds of other plugins. You just have to search through them and see what you want. And there are definitely some that allow you to upload spreadsheets. But again, remember, you want to make sure that it is not the final version that has any identifying information. You'd want to copy it and make one that doesn't have that. But there's 88 pages of plugins in here. And just like when you're installing apps for your phone, you do want to look them up, make sure they're reputable, make sure they have good reviews. Don't just start, clicking install on every single thing you see on here. It's no different than a phone or a computer. You don't want to do that. And you can use up to 3 plugins at once. So for example, I have the making a sheet, helping you if your prompts are bad, making diagrams, and the link reader. And most times I have these ones checked off. So you can have a long list, but only 3 on at a time. So there is one for uploading spreadsheets. In this case, though, the link reader one, if you had it as a Google Sheet, you could give it the public accessible URL for the Google Sheet, and it could read it from there because it is a link on the internet. I see a couple questions. So do we know when the ChatGPT will have current information? No, we don't. It takes a long time to train these systems. So everything we're seeing now, that was built over a lot of years. My partner, my husband, is the one who is way deeper in these things, but he tells us that the technology that's being used for this, the kernel, which is what it's called, was created in the 50s and perfected in the 60s. So this has been a really long time coming. It's just waiting until there's enough computing power for it. So a lot of the AIs, what they're doing right now is trying to connect with search engines. So Google with Bard and ChatGPT with Bing. And that's, at this point, at least, how they're going to do the current information. And then the next question I see is ChatGPT a good idea, as good on idea creation as the plus version? If not, what would be the difference? I tell people that go with the regular version. And if you find that when you go to log in, you're often getting blocked because there's too many people using it, that's when you upgrade. That's when it's worth doing. This one actually is faster. The regular free version is faster. But the 4 is so fast, it doesn't matter to me. I only have the paid ones so that I can use the plugins and so that I never have to wait to get in. Oh, you guys are going wild. Okay, can it create an org chart for me? Yes, we should be able to do that with the diagrams. So let's see. Moderate is not the right word. Let's do a 25-person company in the tech space. This is an interesting one. So it gave answers. Here's a simple structure. It then says it's very generic and roles can vary greatly. Would you like to modify the structure or should I proceed with creating the org chart? So if we wanted to modify it, we would tell it what to change, but let's tell it to proceed with the chart. All right, here it goes. Ooh, that one was fast. Well, I personally am not good at thinking of diagrams in my head. I think of things at a very high level. And when I sit down to then try and draw it, I get so caught up in every little detail. And so this is why, for me personally, this plugin was really useful. But every individual is different. Some people have an incredible skill at doing this already in their own minds. And so they don't need this type of assistance, where maybe creative writing or brainstorming would be more beneficial for them. There you go. So let's open it up in a new tab, see what it looks like. Here it is. Just like we asked for it to do. Okay, what other questions? You guys have great questions. I love when I get to do ones like this and I get to do things I've never done before, like that one, for example. I've never done that before in a presentation. And I think that is an important part of ChatGPT is exploration. And if something doesn't work the first time, try some different words. Try things that you might not think it can do. For example, we've all been in the situation where you go to make dinner and you open your fridge and there's pretty much nothing there. Well, what you can do is tell it, I don't even want to cook tonight, but I have to. These are the things in my fridge. What is the quickest but still delicious thing I can make? And it will give you recipes using only those items. It's incredible. Things like that are just, can you imagine Googling all kinds of recipes and then looking, just see, do you have every ingredient? Is anything missing? Such a time-consuming waste of time. That didn't use your intelligence, that didn't use your creativity, that didn't challenge you, or you didn't learn anything. It's just a waste of your time. And ChatGPT allows you to stop wasting your time on things like that, so that you have more mental energy left for the things that matter the most in your life and in your business.
If you wanted to, say, take the current year's financial statements, an Excel spreadsheet of the financial statements, and compare it to, have ChatGPT compare it to last year's financial statements, what kind of analysis can you ask it to do? What should you expect, and where would it help pick out the items that are you may want to then focus your narrative discussion on? How would that work?
So the way I would personally do that is I would start with data cleanup. So I'd ask it to first clean up the data to remove anything that is unnecessary or that is either identical or very close to identical. Give it a percentage range, of course. Don't let it, just like that entry-level person, don't just assume that it knows what you mean by that. Because then it will pull out those things immediately and leave you with just things that are more, if we're comparing year over year, we want to see changes, whether good or bad. That is important. You can then also ask it to point out things that have changed a lot, whether increase, decrease, or both year over year. And then once you get that, so let's say that your software costs went up 18% this year over last year. If that was one of the pieces of information that came out, well, then you could start by asking it, what are some reasons why software costs would have changed 18% year over year for a X niche, that's where you put your niche company, and see what it comes up with. And then you, with your expertise, look at that and go, okay, could it be that one? Could it be that one? And sometimes it might give you ideas that they weren't even on your radar. Whether they were wrong or right, good or bad, it's something new to allow you to think about. And then when you're making the presentation, you can mention those things as things you looked into because you did. Yeah, I looked at the most common recent reasons, which would be that, inflation's going through the roof. Water costs are going up, which means cooling of hosting companies going up, like all these generic things you can mention that, those could be parts of the cause, but you think in this company's situation, it's more likely that, you started outsourcing something that was in-house before.
Okay.
Because you have that.
But the initial, it comes down to the prompts you're feeding in. The more specifically you can tell it what you're trying to accomplish rather than say, just go do this.
Back to that example you gave a couple minutes ago, come up with some recipes. What's that?
Yeah.
So what I was going to ask is, will it know in coming up with recipes for what you can make out of the stuff in your fridge, will it know somehow what things can't really be combined because they'll taste like crap? Or what things, if they're combined, could be poisonous to humans, and people just know never to combine? Will it know things like that? And if the answer is yes, does it know it because of its training, or does it know it because it knows how to go out quickly and check things on the web?
Oh, so there's like 5 great questions in there. I love that. So it's not going out quickly to check anything right away. It does not do that. It's not possible to do that right now. That's why it doesn't have any current data. So to answer the rest of it, you need to know how it actually writes things. So when it's answering this question, I'm just going to go with this one, the Great Dane one. It starts by choosing the first word that it wants. And then it knows the topic. So when people are talking about Great Danes as family pets, the most likely word that they would use to answer a question that's framed like this would be wow. The next most likely word is weather. The next is great. Then it's Danes. Then it's are. Then it's best. That's how it's doing it. It's predicting the most likely best word that goes after the words that came before. And that's why it creates things that are unique, because it's combining all the things people have written on the internet that it has access to, which is a lot of Wikipedia, a lot of Reddit, things like that, where people are writing like people rather than in the truly professional language. Now, how people write a book is very different than how they're posting on Reddit or similar things like that, which is why the language does skew a lot more towards normal language versus very professional or uptight. And so knowing that, to answer your question about food, well, there might be places on the internet where people are talking about combining things that create poison. However, ChatGPT would know the context of where that data came from. It was homemadepoisonforum.com. Probably doesn't exist. Please don't Google it. And it wasn't on easy recipes to make when you don't feel like cooking tonight topics. So it silos its data based on what it's about and where it came from to be able to create the most likely correct answer. So how does it know what goes well together? Well, because it knows that Dijon mustard is most often with chicken, not fish. So it's going to very likely give you chicken recipes if you say you have a lot of Dijon mustard and chicken and fish, because it will have a lot more examples of that in its repertoire of data. I hope that wasn't too technical.
No, that was great.
Awesome.
All right, we've got a few questions here in the chat.
All right, let's do it.
This is an interesting one. Can AI write a paper with a thesis that includes all of the sites of quoted information and provide a specific word count?
So in theory, yes. In practice, what I've found, I'll see it, watch it, it won't work this time, but I'm going to ask it where it got the moon data from, and you'll see why it likely won't work. I'm going to ask it, provide the link for where you got the data about distance.
All right, it's not going to have a specific source
Mhm.
it's citing.
It's going to
necessarily.
give us one, right? And it is telling us, right? It can't verify it. It can't access or interact with the internet. We're going to click on it.
But it's giving this one because this is a common question with a common answer. If you're citing a source that's say some specific person's findings or opinions about something, that's not necessarily going to be, it's not necessarily going to be able to provide that.
Yeah, and you have to check those things very carefully. So you may have heard, and if you haven't yet, it's a wild story. There was a lawyer who wrote their entire opinion for a judge using ChatGPT from start to finish, did not verify anything, including the cases for precedent that he was referring to, submitted to the judge. And I think there was something like 4 cases, and 3 of them had never existed. They were completely fabricated.
Who
And
fabricated them?
ChatGPT answered the most likely next words. And so, yeah, because it wasn't a common situation, it was writing something. And my guess is that his prompt didn't say like no creativity, no storytelling, only facts. I don't care if it's boring, right? Like those types of details that can help it, rein it in, like we did with our cover letter. Don't add new, position experience types of things. But the worst part of that one is he then asked ChatGPT after he got in trouble with the judge gave him another chance. He then used ChatGPT to ask it to write sources of where those cases came from, and it fabricated that information as well. And he submitted that too. So
You're talking about Rudy Giuliani, it sounds like.
no, I was kidding. Yeah, it's wild. Like that is a true story of something happened this year. So
Wow.
I've said it several times and I will say it again and again and again. Do not copy, paste, and send without looking things over. This is your reputation on the line, right? You're saving so much time by leveraging this. You can spend a bit of time reviewing it. You'll still end up way ahead and you're not going to embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
So the answer overall is, can it write a thesis? Yes, it can. It can, if you write very specific data saying, or prompts, making it very clear that there's no creativity to be used, and it can only be very easily found sources, very reputable, standard, and can be found on numerous educational and scientific websites, that type of thing. Then you'll get a base that you can then build from. It's that draft. Your draft will be done. What it is terrible at, and this is wild, is it can't count. And it's guessing the answer. So when you ask it, how many characters were in the last answer you gave me, it's going to tell you something and it will be very convincing. But if you then paste the answer into a counter that counts characters, I've never seen it be right. And then if you were to tell it, oh, you got that wrong, it replies with a very sweet apology. I am so sorry, I got that wrong. You're right, that wasn't accurate. It's actually 572, which is still wrong because it doesn't have the ability to count. So it can do comparative things, but if you ask it to do something with a certain number of characters or words, that's not something it's capable of doing at this point.
So
Here's
I'm curious,
another. Go ahead, Dan.
Does that have implications for some of the earlier questions that were asked about financial analysis?
That's why. Oh, go ahead.
Well, if it can't count, can it can it look at things like greater than, less than, increase, decrease?
Yeah, but if you asked it, it's the character counts that it's really bad at. The specific question I was answering was about writing a paper with a thesis and cited examples and a specific word count. And in that case, it's not. Now, I use it to do comparisons all the time. Again, you have to double check it. You can't just assume, right? So if it says, oh, there's an 18% increase, I like to ask it all the time to put the data in a table. So it was, give me a table with the 2021 data, the 2022 data, the increase or decrease, and your comments about that. And then it's very easily to quickly make sure, was that information actually correct, just by validating yourself, right? This is not meant to give you the final answer that you submit to your teacher as, your homework to be graded. This is meant to save you a lot of time, so you have more mental energy and physical time to do your part, the final touches to everything and the oversight, and make it great.
Can it scan like financial reports that are filed, with SEC filings and look at multiples of data across companies? Pull information to analyze?
Not at this point. So there is imagery that's being worked on currently. There's only one company that has access to it at this point, called Be My Eyes. It's a company for people who are blind. So you upload an image, for example, of milk, and it will tell you if it's expired or not. Because if you're blind, you open it, you smell it, you're not sure. Your only way to know is by tasting it. That's awful, right? So they have access to the visuals. My understanding is it's going very well, and is heavily loved, heavily used. And I mean, on the roadmap for ChatGPT, that being accessible, where it's a scanned something, that's where that would be able to come into play once that's publicly available.
Michelle, but the SEC filings will probably is in PDF, so doesn't chat read PDF characters?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. You said scan, so I just assumed as an image. My apologies. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, it can read PDFs using one of those plugins that I have here, the link one. Because it has.
Yeah, I use the word scan as in like filter information, review information. Like, can it review multiple financial statements and see if, like how many companies have cash of greater than $1 billion and rank those companies and provide that?
Yeah. So when you want to give multiple data sources, you can write prompts that are multi-part. So you first start by saying, I'm going to give you a series of information that I want you to analyze. This is what I want you to do. Tell me when you're ready, and I'll give you the first document. And then you hit enter, and then it's going to say, okay, I understand, I'm ready. And then you upload the first one, or give the link to the first one in the current format. And then it's going to say, got it, I'm ready for the next one. And so you start by giving the instructions of what it will be getting, and give it the understanding that it doesn't start analyzing, comparing until it gets all, let's say 4 or 5, whatever it is that you're going to be inputting. That's where the prompts come back into play, and they will every time, right? If you don't write it in a way that it understands what needs to be done, then it's not going to work.
Okay, but it doesn't have the ability, like, so I have to provide it those 5 documents. Like, it doesn't have the ability to go find it on the SEC site and pull the financial statements that I'm looking for with particular criteria.
Not since they got rid of the browse with Bing feature, but as soon as that's back, it will be right here. It was the middle one between these 2 options before. The moment that's back, you would be able to tell it to go out and get those and then bring them back to me and then do that.
And would Bard, the Google version of ChatGPT, be able to do that, or does it have the same restriction?
I have not used Bard as extensively, mostly because I don't want to spend my entire day, every day, trying out every AI tool, because I would, and then I would get nothing done, unfortunately. But try. That's for all these things, like a lot of these examples, I haven't done these before. Some of them we can do real time together today, and some we can't, but try and see if it can. Really think about that prompt, how you're writing it, send it off, and you might get back an answer that says, I can't do it, and here's why. Or you might get what you're looking for. Be brave with the experimentation, because there's no downside to trying. I see a question of, are the plugins also available with the free version? No, they are not. That is a feature. Everything on this side of it is only for the $20 a month version. The free version allows you to ask questions and get answers, like we were in our first few that we were doing. if you want to do the bigger things, then it's with the paid version. And some of the plugins also have payment on the third-party site, so the people who made the plugin are not just generously letting you use their functionality for nothing. So for some of them, it's data, for some of them, it's reviews, and for some of them, it's money.
If there's any chance, I hope, and then if it is possible to have a next session, we want to see any PDF file or Excel file analysis from the ChatGPT. It might be more helpful for our daily life to using the files and how it works on it in the ChatGPT.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll write that down.
Thank you.
I think you've got a whole new consulting line of work shaping up here, Michelle.
I love it. I love technology. I love AI. Like I said, I couldn't have built what I have if I wasn't passionate about these things. You know, I bought my first house in cash before I turned 30, no mortgage, when I won 40 under 40 in my 20s. And a lot of it, most of it is from leveraging technology and being ahead of the curve, not being afraid of trying things when other people were saying, like, I was using ChatGPT when most people didn't know about it. I was telling everyone about it when people were saying it's a silly party trick and it's just going to go away soon. And everybody who's on this call today, all of you, you're still ahead of the curve for your industry, which is super exciting because the number of people using this in your space is still very small. So you can really be ahead. And once you're ahead, it's hard to catch up for other people.
Yeah. Michelle, just to follow up on a prior comment,
Yeah.
you know, like a next class. First of all, this is so enlightening to me that I've been sort of a little fearful of diving in, like, what's this whole thing about? So this is a great course. Perhaps another course you have is on use cases for financial. We've heard the financial analysis. We've heard, you know, can you read SEC documents and stuff, but obviously that's a very broad field. Somebody like me who works with small, medium-sized enterprises, just I'd be interested to know how fast this is growing, and are accounting software companies like Intuit, QuickBooks, and Sage, you know, how are they integrating AI into their software to be able to do what we're starting to do now, where, you know, they got to be leapfrogging ahead. How can they do basic financial and trend analysis this, and can they connect to the general ledger to not only present variances of the trends, but the why behind that, because that's all going to be what we usually do anyway. And then that's going to impact our labor. You know, maybe we have 2 analysts instead of 3 who are doing these queries, and we need to train them on it. I don't know. This is mind blowing.
Yeah, that's the feeling I always want people to have. That's now I'm grinning, right? Because that feeling mind blowing, that makes me happy, because that's how this should feel if you haven't been playing with it or seeing it all firsthand, just hearing about it here and there on the news. And that's typically very doom and gloom vibes. But it's the opportunity that's here that is tremendous. And if anyone, you know, for anyone who has kids on this call, same thing. Like, if they can become an excellent prompt writer fast and early, it's going to give them opportunities that'll put them ahead from the start.
I think one thing I'm getting as a takeaway, Michelle, is don't be afraid to experiment, to put in some prompts and see what you get. If you've got the paid version and can link to, you know, say you've got a tables of numbers you want to link to, and have it read those tables and do some analysis, try it out and see what you get. If you're copying and pasting into the prompt, go ahead and do that. But that sounds like a lot of what we all need to do, is just don't be afraid to experiment, and but again, be as specific as possible about what you want, and do some iteration. If you're not happy with your first response, iterate to a better prompt.
Definitely. And I really appreciate some of the ideas that were given to me. If there's additional things you think of that you'd like to know, please do feel free to send me an email. I may not be able to give you that answer same day in some cases, but I'm always looking for new ideas of things like videos and training, and I will that way be able to send it to you once I have them.
All right, and let's, I think now's probably a good time you can start. I do see a session, a request here in this. Any additional pointers you can share with the group that would be helpful? It says.
It's really about asking yourself in each of those moments when you have something new you're starting, could this be easier? Right? Next time you're writing a birthday party invitation, a shopping list, you're shopping for a car, ask it to compare the newest Kia, well, I guess not the newest, the 2011 or 2021 Kia with the 2011 Ford of the same model you're looking at. Present the pros and cons on the table, like ask it to do these labors for you. But it really is, there's a lot of skill in asking yourself those questions to see those opportunities. So try and find all the places you can do that so you can get used to doing it, and it will become very natural. You all saw my sidebar, that's all things I've done in the last week. And I deleted the ones that had any sort of clients or personal information on it. So it's a fraction of what I use it for. And you'll be able to do the same if you start asking yourself where it's possible.
All right.
One of the things I find most intriguing about this is that there have been several questions that have been asked today, and your answer has been, no, it can't do that right now. And the thing I find fascinating is to just project ourselves ahead 10 years, to think that we're going to be looking back saying, boy, remember in 2023, it couldn't do this, it couldn't do that. And look at what it's doing now. And we know we're going to get there. And we can't quite paint a picture of how it's going to look yet. Maybe we can if we try, but it's just fascinating to me what ChatGPT can apparently do. And this is my first exposure to it. And where we know it's going to be in a few years.
Yeah. And every time I give this presentation, I was telling Bill, I always do it live because I want to be an example of being brave and trying things. If one of the prompts didn't work out, well, I would laugh and we would look at it and figure out, was it an instruction? Like, where was it off? It's a good learning, right? But I also always the morning of go through all the features and make sure the things I want to show are still there and that there's not anything new I want to show you because it moves so quickly. There's always new plugins. It's really exciting. It's something to be approached as a massive opportunity and something to stay engaged with.
And Michelle, how do we reach you then if we want to go deeper? If someone wants to go deeper into this, what's the best way? You go ahead and kind of wrap it up here a little bit.
Sounds great. So if you have ideas that you want to send me or things that you'd like to see videos on that I could post on social media, so things that are generic rather than things that are for you and your company privately, please email me at michelle@venturecreative.com, which I put in the chat. And then if you work for a company that would like this type of consulting, we do this one-on-one with companies. We're going to California in 2 weeks to do one in person for a couple of days. You can reach out through our company website, and that's venturecreative.com.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else have any final comments before I wrap up the meeting? All right.
Can you please, if it is
ahead.
possible, when you guys arrange the new session, can you please email us for the notification for the register?
Can you state that again? Please say that again.
If you set up a new meeting, Bill, can you notify at least all the people who were here on this meeting today?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Which includes obviously people beyond just the South Bay chapter.
Well, I can answer for Bill. This is Joyce. Michelle, we definitely want you back, and there are many chapters out there, I'm sure, that would want to hear from you. So I'll make sure that everybody on this mailing list will also get the mailing for anywhere we have Michelle speak.
Thanks, okay? Yeah. And I will say a personal ask, if you don't mind, if you love this and you're on LinkedIn, find me. And there is a review section. I love doing things like this. And so if you enjoyed it, I'd love to have a review on it if you have some time. You can even use ChatGPT to write it for you. Yes, Carla. That's it.
All right.